Hello everyone, my name is Natalie Ledwell and this is the Inspiration Show, and today I have a very super interesting show for you. I have someone on the show, an expert, who is going to tell us how our handwriting can actually influence our life, and how by changing our handwriting it can positively influence our life. So I'd like you to help me in joining to the show, Treyce Montoya. How are you, Treyce?
I'm doing great, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I am so interested to get into this subject with you, because not only you've been doing this work for quite some time, but you have some incredible results that you've been able to measure along the way as well. So why don't we start first of all with your story and your background and how you got into doing this type of work.
Well, I was severely bullied starting in kindergarten and beat up, and, every day was, even starting very young, I was like, I don't want to wake up another day and go to school and deal with being bullied. And then at home, I was severely abused in every way, shape, form you can think of with alcoholic parents. And I was the only child. So my father had military time and met a man named Charles Stahl, who lived in San Francisco at the time, and he had run a handwriting analysis school, and this was back in the 60s. And so he started coming over to my father's house. We were living in Tucson at the time, and would try to talk to my father about his handwriting analysis work, but my father was extremely non-interested, and but would pacify him to a certain extent. Where here I am, the little mini nerd, and I wanted to learn everything about it. So to make the story short, my 11th birthday present was to start learning forensic handwriting analysis age appropriately, and I studied with him very closely until after I graduated high school and went into the Air Force. And I ended up being certified, and it's been my career path ever since. So for 27 years professionally, I've done this internationally.
Right. So when you say forensic handwriting, so how were you using this knowledge in the beginning?
Well, I started, what happened was he had his own business and his own clients, and so he had come down with cancer. What he did was he introduced me as his replacement. So I actually walked into a career in my 20s, into a career field that was mostly men, obviously, and mostly men in the law enforcement field are kind of like, why am I going to listen to a 20-year-old female about something that we don't even necessarily believe in? Something like handwriting analysis. So I had my own battles with that, trying to get myself started. But most of that time, the 27 years, was working on law enforcement training all around the world. And then it opened up to training human resources, training probation and parole and other correctional facilities, mental health. And then the general public got into it. So I traveled the world doing all of that training and also working on casework. And I've helped write a Criminal Minds episodes and stuff like that. So very interesting work. But my passion wasn't in the forensic side. It was in the mental health side and handwriting related.
Right. So so what is it that we can tell? What can you tell from someone's handwriting? What can you tell about a person?
Well, when I look at say a couple words, when I look at that, I see hundreds of personality traits flying at me. Going back to that individual's age of approximately 3 years old. So I've had to train my brain to only pick and choose what I think that person needs, I guess what I instinctively feel that person needs to hear or know about at the time, that things may be blocking, their happiness or their success or their goals or what have you. And so I can see things, such as sexual abuse, such as anger, resentment. I can even timeline it back to where these things occurred or when these things occurred, so people can be aware. It's not that we can go back and change what happened, but we don't have to let those significant experiences trigger us and control us. And that's what my program's about, is taking away the power that the past holds over us and that we drag along day to day into our future, and blocks us from creating our goals and our happiness.
So what you're saying is that we can, when you analyze our handwriting, we can make certain changes that will then allow money to flow into our lives and for us to have the health that we want or create the relationships that we want?
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. right.
So how do we do that?
Well, I think, I really would like to give, you and your followers a really, really strong, powerful tip to really let go of that past and really start, self-empowering for whatever it is, whether it's money related or goal related or relationship related or whatever it is. And that, it seems simple in theory, but I can guarantee you it's a lot harder consciously to do, because we have all these habits, years and years and years of writing habits, just like we do behavioral habits. And so that change is to make all of the capital I's, like in your I statements, I am, I will, I have, whatever it is. That I, that capital I, is the only letter in the alphabet that represents just you. So it's really important to have that capital I very strong and made in a very healthy way. And the healthiest way to make that is one strong, tall, proud, vertical line down. No horizontal lines, no loops, no hooks, no anything. Just one straight vertical line down.
Wow. Okay, I am adopting
super
that
powerful
right
move.
away. So okay, so I know that you have worked with a lot of different people. I know before we jumped on the video, you were talking about working with juvenile as well. So tell us a little bit about what was happening there.
Well, what happened was a friend of mine was the executive director of the Texas Juvenile Probation back in 2006. Well, she was there for many years, but 2006, I had a state representative invite me to run a research project with the high recidivist juveniles that were there. And anonymously, they were put into my program. Of course, they had to be willing participants. And they were taken off all other treatments or programs that they had been on for mental health or behavior, because none of them had worked. They had failed repetitively at these other programs. And so for 6 months, I took these juveniles of various ranges of age and socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds and crimes, and everything was very diverse. And for 6 months, I put them in the program, completely anonymous to me, and the state tracked their background for 5, well, they were supposed to do it for 5. It looks like it was six years that they had tracked their background. And keep in mind, all of these had repeat offenders. They had been through the system several times. After my program, for that continuing 6 years, none of them had reoffended.
Wow.
So, very powerful.
Okay, so how do you work with people? Like, what is the work that you do with them?
Well, I have several certified therapists now around the world coming up. And so the program was designed in 1987 and literally saved my life. So that's how it was really just for me, and then it started helping other people in domestic violence situations, and it just expanded from there. So keep in mind, in 1987, there was no immediate access to fax machines. There was no internet for everybody, no email, no cell phones, none of that. So the program was and still is designed to be working remotely from home, or some people don't feel safe at home, they do it from their office. And there's progress notes that get involved. There's submission schedules. Like, there's a lot of support. There's a video support series. There's all of the support that goes into it, even though it's a remote situation. So it's a really safe way to go through therapy, if you want to say that, therapy, even though it's not really therapy. It's just like journaling. Everybody knows the power of journaling, but it takes it a step farther by creating new neurological connections in the brain, which is cognitive, then the behavioral part, and it nails all those. I think one of your previous guests said there's 6 layers of consciousness. It nails all those 6 layers. So it's very powerful.
Wow, so you bring up a really important point there. So by changing our handwriting, it actually changes something neurologically for us?
Yes, it actually reprograms the brain to make new neurological connections for the new personality traits that you're trying to put in place of the ones that you don't necessarily like. Right. So something about anger, they take that away and put in, like, forgiveness or something opposite, and still keep the brain connections there. They just make them healthy and create new ones.
Right. Because, I mean, not many of us write that much anymore.
I know. That's the problem. I mean, you know, handwriting is slower, but it actually has been proven with neurological studies and, you know, the scans, the brain imaging and stuff, that when you actually handwrite, you fire up a lot of the brain activity areas that's not fired up during typing or keyboarding or texting or anything like that. So there's parts in there that you're activating the brain, and second only to language, handwriting uses more brain activity than anything else.
Wow.
So it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, well, I actually personally went through a program just recently called the Hoffman process. It was 6.5 days, intense. It was probably one of the most transformational things I've ever done for myself, and a lot of it, we were doing a lot of writing, and it was amazing how, you know, once you start writing, how things started to flow and memories would come back, and it was because I don't handwrite that often because I'm typing all the time, so I found that was actually really insightful. So you know, how much writing should we be doing? Like how many hours a day or how many minutes a day should we be handwriting to be able to you know, effectively make these changes?
Well, you know, I suggest no less than 20 minutes a day, and right before you go to bed is best because it activates the subconscious, and then when you go to sleep it continues working subconsciously. And then at the same time, even probably more powerful or just as powerful is healthy letter shapes. That's incredibly important, because if we're writing really crappy and unhealthy letter shapes, it doesn't matter how much writing we do, because that's going to keep that unhealthy stuff locked in us. And that's why it's really important to use it with a guided, you know, a guided measure, such as my program or like my book, you know, any of my books, really. But it's really important to do the healthy letters, and that's I think the power behind it all is really the healthiness of the letters.
Wow, amazing. All right, so we're getting a little close on time, but is it possible for you to share like a transformational story of someone that you've worked with over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that comes to mind just instinctively when you said that was a lady out of Oklahoma. She was 45 years old, has gone through 15 years of, you know, traditional mental health talk therapy, if you will, and medication, and she still felt kind of divided. She said, part of me feels like it was helped and the rest of me feels just as unstable as I was 15 years ago. She had been raped multiple times. She'd been in repetitive abusive situations. She was being verbally abused and disrespected by her children. It was just huge, unhealthy environment that she was in. Well, she didn't have access to go to any other place physically to get to a therapeutic environment. So she came to my program, and she graduated on time, which is 6 months. And then she's now been out of the program for almost 14 months, and she'll check in every few months and say she's still doing good. She left the abusive environment. Her kids are living with their dad now to give her some space for healing, and have on visitations they've been much more respectful to her, but at the same time she's setting more boundaries where she didn't set boundaries before. She said she's finally reached a place where she's in love with her life. And I'll share that on my fan page, like some of that stuff, anonymously, of course, but I do share some comments on one of my fan pages. So it's important to feel empowered, and she's just loving her life now, and that's really important. She actually heard about my program from one of my police officer students because it's her brother. So
excellent. So what are some of the benefits people can experience from going through your program?
A lot of people that come through my program have eating addictions or eating disorders, however you want to word that. It's, you know, and food has a real control over people. I've dealt with that myself in my past, and we control what we can when our life is out of control of the things that we can't control. And so one of the things we can control is the pen and the paper, though, and that's what helps make it empowering. So whether we're dealing with residual effects of trauma such as abuse or bullying, or we're just running around with a lot of anger, resentment, guilt, and shame, and all that stuff that just, you know, keeps beating us up. I call this, you know, those words up here, the itty bitty shitty committee, because it's always talking bad about it. It's like these mental bullies, and this helps quiet them, you know, not suppress them, because when you suppress them they come back stronger, but to quiet them and learn how to interact with them so that they can heal from within and reprogram that brain and come out of it much more stronger and not having the triggers before affect them.
Wow, awesome. Like I predicted in the beginning, this was an exceptionally interesting show. Treyce, I'm so glad that I got to have you here on the show so you could share this information. So if people want to find out more about you and your programs, where can we send them?
WrittenEscape.com is the website for the handwriting information therapy program itself, but then my website is asktreyce.com. And thank you, Natalie, so much for this opportunity. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time.
Well, I'm very honored to have met you. Now, guys, I encourage you to share this video and the extremely interesting information in it. Now, you can do that by clicking the Facebook and the Twitter share buttons on this page. Make sure that if you click on the banner to the side, you'll go straight through to Treyce's website from there. Also, download the app if you haven't done so already so that you can watch the shows on the go. You don't necessarily have to be in front of your computer anymore. And please leave your email in the box on this page so that I can send you the Manifesting with the Masters video e-course. It's actually valued at $87, and I would love to send it to you for free. So until next time, remember to live large, choose courageously, and love without limits. We'll see you soon.